autistic brother.
Hi, my name is Melanie Federa. I will be graduating from ALI this fall with a degree in communications. My presentation is titled Finding the Missing Puzzle Piece, My Life with an Autistic Brother. Let's get started. This is an overview of all the things I will be talking about today. A little bit about where my project is going and where it's been. A little reading I've been doing about this summer. A little bit about my family. I will read you an excerpt from my book. I will tell you where I'm going from here, and then I can answer your questions. When I was 9 years old, my dad gave me my first computer. It didn't have an internet connection. Yeah, I know, really hard to believe. But I would play games like Spider Solitaire. I would just mess around with the settings on the computer. I was very fascinated with computers. And like most girls my age, I had a small paper journal, a diary, whatever you want to call it. But I soon realized that there was a diary I could have on the computer. It was infinite. You could just type to oblivion, you could save it, you could print it. It was so amazing. I was totally hooked, and I never stopped. I've journaled almost every day since then, and I soon began to realize that the most common thing I journaled about was my brother, Johnny, who was on the autism spectrum. There isn't really a Kinsey scale for autism, so it's pretty hard for me to explain exactly what he's like when he's not in front of you. He's mostly nonverbal, but he can repeat words and phrases. He understands requests as, please shut the door, and will say things such as, I want this, or I don't want that. He can never live on his own, but he can think for himself. He can show love and compassion, but he hates to be held. I've always wondered what he's thought about. I wondered what made him scared. I wondered what made him happy, and I wondered what he thought of me. And 10 years later, I still really don't have an answer. But these journals are really, really valuable to me now, because I remember what it used to be like being 9, 10, 11 years old, when any of my brothers sitting next to me on the couch watching TV would ever be able to understand me. My next step in this project is to interview people who have been involved in my life. Before my brother was even diagnosed, my grandmother put an ad in the newspaper, the biggest ad you could buy, and it was in color, saying speech therapist needed for a 3-year-old boy. It didn't say autistic boy. He wasn't even diagnosed yet. And it said pay negotiable. That's all the ad said. And it had a picture of him on it. The girl that answered that advertisement is my age now. She wasn't even graduated from college. She is still employed by my family. She was there when my grandma died, she was there when I graduated high school, and she was there when I started thinking about writing this book. And she has a lot of insight about him that's been very valuable to me. My parents also needed to be interviewed during this time, and as his legal guardians, I need their consent to begin to write this story. They've been a huge help to me in filling in the gaps of things I don't really remember, but that I know happened. And ultimately, I have to admit that I, to some extent, am an unreliable narrator. I don't remember every little thing that I've said in my life or what color shirt I wore on a certain day, but I've never forgotten how I felt. So after I got to look through the journals, I began to take them and transform them into creative prose that would interest a reader. I really, really wanted this book to appeal to all types of people. I wanted people on the street that didn't know me or my brother or where I came from to care about this story. But I also wanted moms and dads with children who have autism to say, wow, I always wondered that too. I always thought about that. I wanted to tell our story. I wish he could write this book, but he can't. So I'm doing the best that I can. My journals weren't the only things that I read this summer. I looked into The Ethics of Life Writing by Egan, which was really important when crafting scenes and memories about personal things about my life. I also read Siblings and Autism, which is essentially chicken soup for the soul written by individuals who have siblings on the autism spectrum. Reading through these stories, I was just so overwhelmed. I was like, wow, I could have written this story. This could have been me. I feel the exact same way. I also read a lot of books about writing nonfiction. Even though I've been journaling my entire life, I never thought anybody would read them, so I have a lot to learn about writing syntax and grammar. I also read a lot of works by Temple Grandin, and if you don't know who she is, you should, because she's my hero. She's my Beyonce. Dr. Grandin created humane slaughterhouses now used all over the United States and has famously stated, the world needs all kinds of minds. I also read a lot of scientific articles from the World Health Organization, the American Journal of Medicine, and the National Institute of Health. Truthfully, nobody really knows what autism is. We don't know where it comes from. We don't know why certain people get it. So I try to learn more about it every day. And this is my family. From left to right, we have my mom, my younger brother, who's now 15, Andrew, my dad, and then me. And then we have our 2 dogs. Barney is the little one, and Bree is the big one. And I'm just now realizing that the photo of my dogs is far larger than my family. So you know what I care about. And this is Johnny. We are 14 months apart, practically twins. I don't have one single memory of my life where he's not my brother. It just doesn't exist. We grew up in Troy, practically the Orange County of Michigan, which quite impressively has been ranked the safest city in Michigan for the past 5 years by CNN. When I think about my childhood, I had pretty much every cliche you could think of. I played with Barbies, I watched Wizard of Oz until my VHS tape broke. My parents pulled me around in a wagon and took Polaroid pictures. And when I was a kid, I thought having him was just everything. I was all that in a bag of chips because I had Johnny as my brother. I had something nobody else had. And now that I'm older, I know that I'm not the only one that has an autistic sibling, and I certainly know I'm not the only one to ever write about it. On the playground when I was a kid, my peers bragged about how cute their cat was or their new light-up Skechers. I had all those things too. I was totally spoiled rotten. But all I wanted to talk about was my brother. And if you look at these two pictures, and you ask me what the difference is, I would say, oh, you know, he's younger on the picture on the left, and now the picture on the right, we're older. And that's it. But the photo on the left, he had not been diagnosed with autism, and the photo on the right, obviously now he has. But in both of these pictures, he's still my brother. I'm going to read you a part of my book from a chapter called Holidays. My family celebrated all the typical American holidays, but Johnny always had a way to spice them up. His favorite holiday, Halloween, has been celebrated the same way for the past 19 years, by putting on a costume and demanding candy from complete strangers. My brother made me realize what Halloween is really about, economics. My dad takes Johnny trick-or-treating every year, even though he is now 19. Our neighbors know all about Johnny, so it's not a big deal. They know he's not going to say trick-or-treat unless prompted, and they won't say, isn't he a little old to be trick-or-treating? They know better. When we get home, he dumps his pillowcase filled with treats on the floor, as I do the same. We lock our dogs in the bathroom so they don't accidentally eat any candy. Johnny doesn't like chocolate, he doesn't like cookies, he doesn't really care for those super sour warheads either. What the kid really likes is gum. We've tried to get him to quit gum because it ends up everywhere. On the couch, on the walls, even in my hair. My senior year of high school on Halloween, I bought him a pack of gum. It was that bubblicious kind that was green and red, and when you chew green and red together, it creates a color that unmistakably looks like human vomit. But the kid loves it more than anything. And it was only $1.50 at Kroger. $1.50 for a huge smile on my brother's face. I would pick up pennies on the side of the highway to make that happen. I unveil it and I see his eyes lock on it. Usually when my mom pulls out a pack of gum, it's that nasty, dentist-approved, sugar-free gum. She's a nurse. But he'll still settle for it. Some parents have to hide money, the internet password, or the television remote from their children. But my mom just has to hide gum. He starts to chew his first piece. I know if I just gave him the pack, he would put every single piece into his mouth. And these are pretty big pieces of gum, he might choke. So I just give him one. I search his stockpile for something worthy of the gum. Ah, king-size Twix. I stick it in my pile. Pleasure doing business with you, I say, metaphorically shaking his hand. My parents have tried to teach my brother how to shake hands, but he doesn't really like doing it. I don't want him to do anything he wants to, after all. It is a holiday. I knew Johnny wouldn't really want any of the other candy. For years, Halloween at my house was like the occupation of a small country between my younger brother Drew and me fighting over Johnny's candy. Once Halloween was too cool for Drew, my parents would mail me Johnny's Halloween candy at college. I didn't think that was fair since I didn't mail him gum in return, so I tried to make it up to him when I came back. I would take him to the movies, I would take him to the mall, I would take him out to eat. He might scream, he might flap his arms around, but as I got older, I didn't really correct him. He wasn't bothering anyone, he was happy and they should have just let him be. All my life I've been saying, I'm so sorry, he's autistic, when he accidentally knocks down a display in a store, is a little too loud, or accidentally eats someone's fries. It was an honest mistake, all the Traylon McDonald's look exactly the same. But as I got older, I realized all these years I should have been saying, sorry, you just wouldn't understand.
Finish up.
Okay. I still have about a month left of my project, so I'm going to continue churning out more bits and pieces of my life that are important to me. I still have more interviews I can conduct, and I still have memories that need filling in for my parents. And I'm still hoping that chapters of my book can turn into my senior thesis, which from then on can turn into a full-length, creative nonfiction published work. I'd like to thank my advisor, Glenn, who cared about this book from day one just as much as I did. I'd like to thank Ian, who encouraged me to do this program, and the FURSCA committee for considering me for funding, and then ultimately giving it to me. Thank you to my family for putting up with me texting them at 2 a.m. Wait, where did we go spring break of 2006, and what was I for Halloween in 2001? And last but not least, thank you to everyone who believed in this story. If it wasn't for you talking to me after class saying, I really love that story you told me about your brother. I never thought about it that way. Can you please tell me a little bit more? These stories and these moments would have been locked away from the world on my computer forever. I I wouldn't be here without you. Thank you so much for listening.